Hello and welcome to a Monday night edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and I am joined tonight by Osceola editor Bob Ferrante and that former FSU offensive lineman and former college offensive line coach Mark Salva. Guys, it is hard to believe, even as long as this season has been, we are about to enter the last week of the regular season in college football, and obviously Florida State's last week of practice, last game of the year against Florida. So obviously, I think we're all excited about that game because it's one of the few one of the ones we look to all year. But coming off Florida State, obviously coming off a much needed win over Charleston Southern Saturday, 41-7. Bob, I'll start with you because Mark and I kind of talked about it on Saturday because of the sheer, well, I guess, Charleston Southern's really bad FCS football team.
Yes.
I don't know how much we what we saw. We heard Mike talk a little bit about it today. I would just prefer that he said, hey, we played a football team that we should have beat that way, and we beat them. It is what it is, and moved on. Instead, we heard we did some things well. We didn't do other things well. We saw things from Luke and some other young guys. But what was your, I guess, just what were, if you had any serious takeaways from that game, what were they?
I'm with you guys. I listened to the Saturday night show, and I think I agree with just about everything you all said. I'm not sure you can take away a whole lot other than it's good to get experience inside Doe Campbell Stadium if you are a young football player and need that kind of experience. If you are a Luke Kromenhoek, a lot of defensive players made their debuts against Charleston Southern, and they're getting their first snaps. It's not significant in the big picture, but for them to kind of get those butterflies out, that first game experience, I think some of those first steps are important. I mean, there's not a lot that we can really take away from it. I don't think we can analyze Luke Kromenhoek and say, this guy is the future, is the guy who's going to lead them to an upset over Florida. We really can't make bold predictions, but it's at least some good feel good. It's maybe some fool's gold confidence.
Yeah.
It's some feel good, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, you're whether you're disappointed in the season or not, I think you got to be happy for the kids, if nobody else. I mean, that's a long season. I mean, I guess you feel good for the coaches as well, but this is a team that they should have dominated. Right. I mean, it's a paid-for win. Now, I do think this, I said this last week when he announced that he was going to have co-stars at quarterback, that this likely meant he has made a decision on who he's moving forward with for 2025. And he did start Luke Kromenhoek. And as I said before the game, whoever started was going to get the vast majority of the snaps. And that's exactly what happened. And I think it's what's going to happen against Florida, unless Luke Kromenhoek's just getting beat to a pulp, which there's a fairly significant chance that's going to happen because we saw Charleston Southern wreak havoc on Florida State's offensive line last week. I think they had double-digit sacks and TFLs combined. But listen, obviously my opinion is that, Mike drew a line in the sand with the quarterback situation. Luke is his guy. That's who he's going to roll with going into 2025, short of getting a portal quarterback. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes because I have heard some names that Florida State could be interested in. But when we get to there, I will clarify this. None of those players are in the portal, but we also are not foolish enough to think that some of these conversations are not already taking place, because we understand that if you're going to take a portal kid, regardless of what the rules say, if you're taking a portal kid at any college, you're already talking to that kid more than likely. But I want to go to what happened post-game when we're talking about Luke. So, as we all well know, if you're a Florida State fan, Florida State breaks a ceremonial rock, with a sledgehammer after the game.
I forgot about that.
I think they had to get the mothballs off the axe, and I'm pretty sure they had put all the bricks in storage somewhere.
Could they find the sledgehammer?
They did find the sledgehammer. And interesting enough, despite going through a 2-10 season and have a ton of seniors on this team who contributed to last year's 13-0 run and 13-1, y'all have almost got me conditioned to say 13-0, which is not true. And then 10-3 the year before that. The person that broke the rock was Luke Cromenhawk. And so my take on this, because Mark, you can verify, most coaches, all coaches that I know, everything is very planned out. What decisions they make, how they make them, when they make them. To me, there was some symbolism in Luke Cromenhawk being the one given that sledgehammer to break that rock. And listen, there's still a chance that he brings in a portal quarterback, but I think, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, maybe Mike made an emotional decision. Maybe Luke was standing next to him when they got in the locker room. I don't think that's what happened, but I think there was some symbolism in that moment, and I think what Mike Norvell was saying, hey, Luke, this is your team. Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, hey, Mike Norvell does not do anything that isn't well thought out. So I didn't know that until you told me that before we came on, that he broke the rock. He's obviously pushing Luke forward and sending a huge message. And that message is, we're gonna sink or swim with this guy, and we know we're gonna take some lumps, but we're gonna be better for it 2-3 years down the road. And I mean, that's the message that sends to me, is because we've been watching Luke all year, and there's nothing that tells you that he's ready to pull a Lagway or something, where he's going to come out and just start throwing the ball over the field. I mean, he's been inconsistent at best, and a lot of that has to do with the people around him, the inability to protect, running for his life, and that wounds a quarterback. I mean, your eyes drop. You're not looking downfield. You're looking to see where you're getting ready to get hit next. So, something he sees or knows, or maybe it's just the fact that he had to, declare one way or the other, or risk losing both. Promises that may have been made, I don't know, but there's definitely, and we talked about the Saturday night, that we thought that, pushing Luke forward has a lot to do with this recruiting class that just came in, that he was the bell cow and he was the leader of that class. He recruited actively a lot of these guys. He went to some of their announcement ceremonies and he did all that stuff. So he's the leader of that class, and in the portal era, that's got to be a consideration when you start forming the leadership on your team. And again, that was the thing also that has been severely lacking in this football team. The leadership has been non-existent, and it's great if it comes from the quarterback position. It doesn't always have to, but it's great if it does. And by pushing Luke forward like that, he's anointing him as the leader, and he is confident that Luke has the chops for it. He knows the kid better probably than anybody, and better than we do for sure. And if he's putting his eggs in that basket, and make no mistake, it's a huge risk, and so by doing that, he is putting his job on the line, essentially, right? You talked about bringing in a portal quarterback. I want to tell you, I am not a fan unless it is a huge difference maker, unless it is a Cam Ward or somebody that is a surefire difference maker. Do you bring him in? I'm not interested in bringing in a guy that has some experience and has some potential and all that stuff. I want a guy that's known it, shown it, that is very highly thought of by the NFL crowd. Unless that guy's out there and interested in coming to Florida State, I think you're gonna do more damage than not. And if it's about building depth in the quarterback position, well, go out and recruit. I have a lot of thoughts on that. There's definitely a risk there too, and that's the position we're in, and it's not a good one. And if anybody thinks there's a quick fix out there, I'm not seeing it. So,
Bob, what are your thoughts on Luke and obviously the breaking of the rock? And listen, I've said before all this started that if Mike brought in a portal quarterback, they would lose both these kids. That's just my opinion. Brock and Luke being losing those two kids. But certainly, again, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but they're very purposeful in who they allow to perform that honor out of 85 scholarship kids and 44 kids that play from the line of scrimmage in a particular game. What was your take on Luke and that situation and what Mike said today?
Yeah, I know. I mean, historically, it's Mike Norvell, Josh Storms talking about it briefly in the locker room after the game. Hey, what do you think? What do you think? They haven't had to have that discussion all that often, obviously. Willie Suarez getting the honor as the special teams guy who forced that fumble, and he also broke the rock. But I'm with you. There is significance in Mike Norvell going all in with Luke Kromenhoek. I think as much as I want to be naive and think that you can have Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek around in the spring, it's not the way college football works with quarterbacks anymore. We wish we could have the Bobby Bowden formula of you're going to start or play as a redshirt sophomore, true junior, redshirt junior, something like that. It just doesn't work like that, doesn't function like that did, 30 years ago. I think I'm with Mark. We haven't seen enough of Luke to say that's the guy. He can start day one against Alabama 2025. I would say that's a guy who's got tremendous upside, who with some more time, maybe a different quarterback coach, maybe something else with a new scheme, some schematic changes to a Norvell offense, maybe we can see a Luke Kromenhoek develop on a trajectory far beyond a Brock Glenn type of trajectory. But again, the transfer quarterback thing is Florida State's been bitten by it. Whether it's Mackenzie Milton, who just it didn't work out because of
that was a roll of the dice. So yeah, I mean, with his leg. And
so here's the thing: Mike Norvell can't roll the dice anymore. There's no more rolling the dice on transfer quarterbacks, on OC hire, DC hire, regardless of who's calling the plays, regardless of who's coaching receivers. Every single decision from here on out must be freaking nailed by Mike Norvell to make this program get back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And here's the thing, and it's the rub on not taking a portal quarterback, right? Because listen, we can go back to DJU, who did not look very good in his own right, but obviously the further we got into this season, we realized that, hey, this is more about the offensive line and the supporting cast than it is anybody else. I don't know that we can make a fair evaluation of Brock at this point. I know a lot of people like to dump on Brock, and I don't know why. I think if Brock transfers out, he is probably going to go somewhere and be an effective quarterback. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go to Ohio State. That being an effective quarterback may be that he's at Wake Forest or somewhere like that. But I don't think we've gotten a chance to truly evaluate any of them. But the rub on not taking a portal quarterback, Bob and Mark, is you're exactly the same place you were this year after DJU got hurt. You got a redshirt freshman. Well, a true sophomore now because his red shirt's gone, and you'll have a true freshman in Kevin Sperry, unless Trevor Jackson were to beat out Kevin Sperry if when they come in the spring and go in the next fall, assuming that Trevor stays. I mean, we've still got to get the portal out of our system starting December 8th. So I think it's a very interesting situation that Mike finds himself in. And listen, FSU's rolling the dice on Mike being able to get this turnaround, right? I mean, they gave him the big contract. It's hard to get out of. He's going to get at least 1 year. We can have the argument all day long about how this next season goes and what's the magic number. Is there a magic number? Everyone's going to have a different opinion on that. We just had a text thread, Osceola staff text thread, where there's a lot of volatility and what we think what's going to happen next year. So I do think it's interesting how this could play out. And I do think Florida State has some interest, and some other quarterbacks around the nation have some interest in Florida State. We're not going to talk about them tonight for one reason only. That's not the reason. What I want you to do, what we want you to do, because I believe this is brand new intel that you're not going to find anywhere else unless they've been on our site and take it to use as their own. I've got 3 quarterbacks on our website at theosceola.com that I believe Florida State is interested in them, or the players are interested in Florida State. And that's in addition to Thomas Castellano. So we've already covered that. But if you want to read about that, we're not going to give away that information for free tonight. It'll come public knowledge soon enough. But if you want it early, please go to theosceola.com and subscribe to the Osceola. It is for subscribers only. But I've got a tight end prospect that I listed today that I think everyone will keep eye on, and everybody will be glad to know. He is a blocker. He's a great blocker. He's 6'5", 271 pounds. So, and he is a kid that was 6'3", 203 pounds coming out of high school 3 years ago. This is his true junior season. So he's a guy that has developed at a smaller level. He plays in the Southern Conference, and he's a guy that I believe has interest in Florida State. We'll see if Florida State reciprocates that interest, but you can go to theosceola.com and check that out. But it is behind the paywall, and I'm sure soon enough those names will be out. But they all three have ties to either the Sunshine State or a coach on Florida State staff, one of the two. So go to theosceola.com and check out our 3 new hot names on the portal board as it pertains to quarterbacks. And again, that is in addition to the name that we've already heard before and confirmed that there's interest in, which is former Boston College quarterback Thomas Castellanos. And by the way, wow, BC seems to be doing fine without Thomas Castellanos. They beat up on Mac Brown this weekend with their new quarterback, and I think they won the week before that. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, so we do have some recruiting updates. Well, first of all, Bob, before we get there, I do want to, Randy Shannon spoke today. I heard a little bit of what he had to say. I thought it was a pretty interesting an open conversation. It wasn't some of the stuff that I have to try to forget once I've listened to it that we get from some other coaches. But what were your takeaways from the rest of Mike's press conference, and what you heard from Randy?
Yeah, I think Mike talked a lot about Luke Kromenhoek and just what he's seen from him these last couple weeks as far as his development. I think he was definitely messaging to the seniors, this is your chance. This is your last game at Doak. This is your time to finish a career with some kind of significant memory in how you play Florida. And I think a lot of that was motivational, trying to, speak some positivity into the program. With Randy Shannon, he's very much a head coach speak. Every time I watch him, he comes off more head coach and kind of politician and less assistant coach. But I thought Randy spoke a little bit about Sean Murphy, his development coming off injury, having some playing time here these last couple of weeks. And, his one positive takeaway, I think, again, it was against an FCS opponent, but he felt like they did what they had to against the run. They did what they had to limit a triple option team that was their bread and butter, to try and run. And so I don't know. It's kind of weird to have these press conferences on Monday now at this point in the year, because we know there's going to be so much of a staff shakeup. But it is interesting, I guess, to hear some of the perspective from Randy and also John Papuchis talking about. I think it was an interesting talking point is when you start thinking about national awards for Ryan Fitzgerald, for Alex Mastromano, they could be your specialists of the year, your Groza and your Ray Guy winners, even though the team's record is 2-9 and might be 2-10. And he kind of stood there and said, these are the best specialists in the country. Yeah. Their growth, their character, what they've done for the program. So it's weird storylines and a very weird season, but I think it was an interesting Monday listening to those guys.
Yeah, I think and listen, I think both of them are deserving, and I will be shocked if Mastromanno does not win the Ray Guy Award. And if he does not win the Ray Guy Award, they should not ever give one out again. That would be a farce. That kid was the best player on Florida State's team this year. He got a hell of a lot more work than he ever thought he was going to get when he came to Florida State, and he has been consistent his whole career. He has put Florida State in positions this year to pin people deep in their own territory, give the offense short field. He did not get any help from his offense or his defense most of the year. I think the thing, and I agree with you on Fitzgerald, and I don't, what is that 59-yard field goal he hit a couple weeks ago? I mean, his leg has gotten stronger. He's gotten more accurate. I just wonder when it comes to the Groves Award, guys, is the total points thing going to work against it to get that award? Because you know that somebody that doesn't watch all the games and votes for that award is because we know they don't. I mean, we know the college football committee does not watch every game. We know that Desmond Howard does not know who plays in the Big 12. We know all these football experts, and I know some too that don't always know what they're talking about. But I do think that might hurt Fitzy when it comes to it. What do you guys think?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. And the fact that we went for it on fourth down so many times when he could have tried a mid-50 field goal and probably got it, but we were not in a position where where Mike Leach thought that we need to score touchdowns. So that's going to hurt Fitzy on that as far as his ability to get that award, unfortunately. But I'm with you, man. I mean, he's as automatic as a kicker as we've had since I don't know, Dustin Hopkins maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's pretty good. I was really pleased because early on it wasn't like that, right? I mean, he had a little rough
years ago. He almost lost his job.
Yeah, almost lost his job, and it says a lot about him that he got it turned around and got so much better and improved the way he did, and don't get me going on the history of kickers at Florida State because I was
some good ones.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Dan Mowry, I love his bow tie, okay, but hey, there's been some painful moments, obviously.
That started well before Dan got to campus.
Oh no, yeah, I'm not putting that on Dan. So
I get your point. But anyway, listen, great seasons by both those guys, but I would be shocked if Mastromanno does not win the Ray Guy. And like I said, I firmly believe if he's not named the Ray Guy Award winner, who the hell are you going to name and why you can even have the award? I guess we see guys get screwed on stuff like that all the time. But hopefully he will not. And I do think that Fitzy is going to probably be as deserving as anybody else on that list. But I do think the total number of points will hurt him in the voting at the end of the day. All right, so we do have a little recruiting news. We usually do a recruiting show on Tuesday. Fish may join me tomorrow. Nick will not be available. He will be traveling. So it may just be me going solo. But I can do that. I can talk to a wall. So we'll be fine there. But we will do a show at 3:00 tomorrow. And here's why. We have a flip alert. And it's not going to shock anybody because we talked about it last week. If you watch our show, if you read if you're along to our website, theosceola.com, we heard rumors last week early that FSU running back commit Byron Lewis was going to take his second visit to Florida in 2 weeks. He visited there unofficially for their game against Ole Miss. Had a really good time and returned there this past weekend on an official visit with his parents. And I have a source that has more than a passing knowledge of his recruitment by the Gators, and they are telling me that he will flip to Florida tomorrow, which will be the third time in less than 2 weeks Florida State has lost a commitment to its in-state arch rival. They lost Tramel Jones almost 2 weeks ago, and Danielle Pierre-Lewis, an offensive lineman, less than a week after that. So not only are you losing kids, but you're losing kids to your arch rival. And of course, people say, why Florida? Well, they're finishing the season about as hot as anybody in college football. I think that's one of the reasons. And obviously, Florida State has struggled, so I think that does not help. And obviously, the decommits show that. Mark, have you ever seen, whether it's Florida State related? Obviously, you played here, you've coached here as a graduate assistant on the '93 national championship team. You coached at South Carolina for 5 years. You follow the game closely. You work with high school recruits or high school prospects, or at least used to, in the Nashville area. Have you ever seen anything like this in your time?
No, I haven't. But I've never seen Florida State in this position before either. This is uncharted waters, obviously. Not only the season, but also the situation with NIL, transfer portal, the way recruiting is now, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this is totally uncharted water for me, especially. And the instability of the staff really hurts. David Johnson's a great recruiter, but if I'm Florida, I'm pointing to that offensive line saying, do you want to run behind that? Because he's gone, and there's nobody behind him, and somebody's going to have to come in and replace those guys who weren't very good to begin with. If those are the best they got, you know what I'm saying? If that was Florida, that's what I'd be saying. And if I'm a kid, I got to listen to that. And oh, by the way, look at the product on the field that we're putting out, right? I mean, that's an easy selling point. And you know what? These have become business decisions for these kids. The kid may love Florida State, but you know what? He's got to think about what's best for him.
Yep.
And it's a hard sell right now. The selling point we have is we're Florida State. We have a history. We've done it before. Turn it around, all that kind of stuff. You want to be part of the solution, not part of, you know what I'm saying, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's going to take a special kind of kid that really loves Florida State to look at the situation we're in right now and say, I want to be part of that. That's the reality. I hate to say it, because I love this place as much as more than anybody, because I know what it did for me. And it's just, no, to answer your question, I have not seen it like this ever.
Yeah. Bob, what about you? Have you ever seen anything like this in your time covering Florida State?
No, it's a wild scenario, and built-in coaching change, transfer portal, NIL, the new House NCAA settlement of what a $20.5 million cap might look like. How do you allocate the money? The fact that you need offensive linemen, but it's historically everybody around the nation will say you can't portal an offensive line. It just doesn't easily work at a lot of schools. There's a lot of different challenges here as far as, like you said, Pat, what does a running back see when he looks at Florida State? The other things I might just add is the running back room at Florida State currently, if you keep the guys who are going to come back, you could bring back a Cam Davis and a Mekhi Danzy. Jalen Lucas will be coming off a knee injury and would be a late recovery type of guy.
That's a great point, Bob.
So Jalen's not going to be a guy who in the spring is going to look like, wow, Jalen Lucas, and not going to be in August, wow, Jalen Lucas. But at some point, maybe Jalen becomes that wow, middle 2025. But still, you have the offensive line issue of there are no easy fixes. There's no way to just go portal here next to Jalen early. Maybe Jacob Rizzi's a guard and maybe he's a center. I mean, there's a lot of maybes up front that it's just tough to paint a picture of what it looks like.
Yeah, and listen, the other tough part of that is there's a lot of maybes on who's going to be back off this existing roster, right? Because, there's a lot of rumors going around that there are a lot of players contemplating leaving. I think that's probably true at any college, particularly any college that is either where a kid has a chance to move up a tier or from a program that is struggling. They all like to win. So we'll see what happens there. Now, I don't know. Somebody put this on the work thread today, Bob. You can confirm or you may not know. Is Roydell Williams eligible to come back next? Okay, so you could have Roydell in that group if he decides he's going to stay, and he is. That's probably one of the other things that came out of this press conference today. Roydell is listed as one of the one of the two running back positions. Don't get me started. But anyway, he's listed among the 17 running backs on the depth chart. It was the first time he's been on there since, I guess, Boston College. So you will get him back from for the Florida game. And I guess there is an advantage there, Bob. He has played in these type of games before, so maybe he helps people hold their water in the huddle because you do have a lot of guys that either aren't playing well or that are very young. So
hopefully he can block the blitz.
Yes.
If he just does that, right?
Yeah, we're going to see that for sure. So that'll be interesting. All right, so he addressed the coaching timeline. I think this is all very fluid. The two hot names on offense right now that are flying around are UNLV offensive coordinator Brendan Marion and Oklahoma quarterback coach Kevin Johns. Both of them have ties to Norvell. Norvell coached Marion at Tulsa. I think he was a great receiver there, maybe one of their all-time leading receivers. And obviously the OC of the go-go offense there at UNLV. He's bounced around a little bit. He's got a lot of experience, different places. And then you've got Oklahoma quarterback coach Kevin Johns, who was Norvell's offensive coordinator his last year in Memphis, then was Elko's offensive coordinator at Duke last year, went to Oklahoma as a senior offensive analyst. They fired Seth Luttrell in the middle of the season, their offensive coordinator. Obviously, and I want people to hear what I'm saying, because I think, first of all, people are making way too much of who gets named OC. I know that people want to think that Mike's going to give up play calling because he said everything's on the table. That is not what Mike Norvell said. Mike Norvell is 43 years old. He said that he's had success calling plays. If you are worried about you're worried about the wrong thing if you're worried about who gets named OC, because it's going to be Mike's offense with variations of whatever these other staff members have done in the past, whether it's Kevin Johns, if he were to come in, whether it's Brendan Marion, whether it was Mother Teresa. They're all going to bring in their own experience, and Mike's going to probably use that. But I think people are getting way too caught up in who was named OC when your head coach, is going to be the play caller. So, but all right, so last night, and we're not saying this is going to happen, but there are two of us with the Osceola who last night heard that Brendan Marion and Kevin Johns were coming to Florida State. Now, there's a couple of things that we need to think about right now. First of all, some rumors are not always true, because the further I dug into one of those two rumors, I found out that one is likely not as far along as what we think or what has been stated. Now, Marion, the thing that you have going on there is he does have a relationship with Mike, but he is a hot name right now. And when the Tulsa job came open, when Tulsa fired Kevin Wilson yesterday, if you go follow the Tulsa fan base, they all want Brendan Marion. That's who they want the administration to hire. We'll see how that works out. And then, of course, the smoke around Kevin Johns got a little bit more real when FSU took the commitment of former Oklahoma quarterback commit Kevin Sperry a couple of days ago. I believe was that on Sunday, Bob? I can't remember. The days are blending together. Might have been Friday. Anyway, it was Thursday. Okay, yeah. The days are blending together. So there's a lot of smoke around those two guys right now. And for listen, Fish and I talked about it the other day. It's hard to separate the Oklahoma quarterback commit from the Oklahoma quarterback coach. But Oklahoma has gotten better as the season get along. Does Kevin want to stay and work for Venables? Does he have that option? Does he want to work for Mike again? Does Mike work? I mean, we don't listen. These are, and somebody, a wise man told me earlier today, sometimes the most obvious name is not the guy that's going to get the job, but those two names are everywhere. But Bob, what are you hearing, and how does that jive with the things that Mike said at his press conference today about the search?
Yeah, I think what Mike Norvell said today is that, yes, he's pursuing coordinators or assistant coaches at the very least who are with a team currently that is in play for one of the 12 college football playoff spots. So, of course, he's not going to get into specifics. Could that be Brendan Marion? Potentially, yes. The challenge with Brendan Marion is he will have to make a decision for his career, right? Do I want to become a group of 5 head coach at the alma mater, Tulsa, that hopefully has NIL money to compete, that's going to back me as a head coach in my first head coaching job? Or do I stick Power 4? And whether it's Florida State or another school, he can pick his Power 4 school probably and be an assistant coach with some title.
Yeah.
I think that's a big question. Kevin Johns is a really good candidate who's got a ton of Power 4, Power 5 experience.
Yep.
I'm with you, Pat. It's not the title. It's who does Mike Norvell trust? Who has he worked with in the past? It's okay. We haven't really talked about the offensive line component either, and I don't want to tee it up for Mark, but how the offensive line coach, how the blocking scheme all blends with Norvell's philosophy, with whoever the pseudo OC in name is. It's all connected. I'm less maybe concerned about Marion Johns, more concerned about show me the pieces with the OL coach.
Well, and I think it's important to say at one time, and listen, I think everything's fluid, right? Because it could be, like you said, one guy could be connected to the other, and that makes has a ripple effect with the current staff. But as recently as a week and a half ago, I was told that Johnson, Tokars, and Thompson would return. Now, I was not. I've heard that Tony could be back at quarterback coach. I've heard he could be at tight end. That Chris could come off the field and be a senior advisor to Mike. I don't know if that's true. I mean, you hear so many things. Now, I will say this, and I don't think anybody's talked about it before. Chris Thompson was a former offensive line coach. So does he return to the position where he coached at TCU and several other places? But Mark, I'll let you run with the ball on the offensive line coach and how you think that impacts who ultimately gets hired.
So unless these guys are tied at the hip to somebody that they've been with, like from the outset, which I don't know if that's the case or not. There are those situations, like when we had who was the guy we got headed with Willie that brought his line coach?
Bryles brought Randy Clements.
Bryles brought Randy Clements. A situation like that.
That didn't work
out.
I
don't know if that's the case. It sounds like John's been around a while. He's probably worked with a lot of guys. Marion, maybe he has a guy that he likes that he want to bring with him. Honestly, that's not as important as the coordinator, the name coordinator's willingness to modify and meld his ideas and his concepts with what Mike ultimately wants to do. And look, maybe you know this better than I do, but I think Kenny Dillingham called a lot of games, right?
I think he probably was the one guy that would probably say, "Hey, Mike or Coach Norvell, we should do this or that." No, I don't think Kenny was calling.
You don't think he was calling plays?
Yeah, I don't think tough guy Kenny, mob mentality Kenny was calling plays for Florida State. I don't. I think he had a relationship with Mike that he could say, "Hey, Coach, I think this is what we ought to do," because they had been together since he was a student assistant at Arizona State.
Right, and I've made this point several times. Calling plays is a little bit overrated because the game plan is the game plan. I mean, you call plays during the week, and you have your certain plays against certain situations and certain areas of the field that you've already settled on, and it's just a matter of picking from menu A, B, or C, right? So, it's a little overrated. So, I mean, we were in a situation when we brought in John Reeves, right, in South Carolina, who was the quarterback coach at Florida for Spurrier for a long time, and we melded a lot of concepts from the Charlie Ward offense with a lot of the Spurrier offense, and and that actually was pretty cool. We filled some holes that they had, and he filled some holes that we had, and it actually ended up being pretty decent at times, right? And when we did that, we also modified our running game. We got away from the eye stuff as much, and we went more straight zone. And that ended up being a great change. Of course, it helps when you have Deuce Staley as a tailback. But so my point is, the ability of guys to work together and concede and meld systems for the betterment of the team and develop something. I mean, that's kind of exciting, actually, when you said, you know what, I'm really good at this, you're really good at that, you've got this idea, how do we implement that idea in terms of whether it's tempo or it's route concepts or it's protection? How do we meld these things together to get the best out of what we both do, right? And as far as the offensive line coach goes, how do we, what do we want our running game to look like? Do we want to, keep going heavy on the counters? Do we want to go more inside zone, outside zone, duo kind of things? The bottom line is here's my point. It all works. The ability to teach it, to get your knowledge to the players, and for them to execute it at a high level is what matters. Okay, the system, it all works. It's the ability. We could kind of roll out in the wing T, but if we execute the wing T to a T, it works, right? So that to me is not as important as the ability of guys to get along, to work together and take the best of what each does, and be able to form something and make something, right? And that's the key to me.
Yeah. Well, listen, and James, I want to answer your question. Listen, he may very well take the job and may come in and may promise him to call the offensive plays next year and be the offensive coordinator, put in his offense. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen when the offense starts struggling next year. Mike's going to take the play sheet like coaches always do, and he's going to end up calling plays. So they can name him, but here's the if what's probably and Brendan Marion may very well end up here, but here's the thing he's got to think about. Florida State's is struggling right now. The program's down. Maybe you believe that they're going to have a miracle turnaround next season and win enough games that everything's fine and dandy and Mike moves on to 2026. But I think the thing that Marion has to think about, you don't get so many chances to be a head coach. And if he were to come here, and he may not have the chance, he may not get offered the head coaching job at Tulsa. It's just what everybody thinks because he went to Tulsa. That's why everybody thinks he's coming here is because he played for Mike. But if he were to come here and Florida State does not do well, he may never get a shot to be a head coach again. Now, he'll probably get a job as an assistant, but he's got a chance right now, if you believe what's out there on the internet and Twitter, which there are a million people on Twitter that don't know a lot of things about football, particularly internally and how things work. And one of the things that if his agent is probably telling him, if you go to Florida State, it better work because you only get this head coach shine on you for so long. Everybody's got a window. Everyone's got a window. What's that, Mark?
We had to say, we said the guru bird doesn't nest long. Yes, he's a fickle SOB. See, there's this bird. He's called the guru bird, and he'll sometimes build a nest on top of your head, right? And that guru bird's on your head, but let me tell you something, he doesn't nest long. So he's a fickle sucker. He'll get off that head in a heartbeat. So if Brendan Marion is the guru right now, you better strike while they're inside. I agree with you 100%. The notion that he wants to, maybe he can go to Florida State, turn that around, and he could be a big conference Power 4 head coach somewhere else. Look, Mike Norvell started out the same way, right? It came from Florida State, so that's nothing. I agree with you 100%. If he has the opportunity to take the Tulsa job, he's going to take the Tulsa job.
Yeah. So if you get 5 years at $2 million a year, you're going to take that, knowing that if it doesn't go well at Tulsa, you can get a head coach, get a job as an OC somewhere else after that, or you come to Florida State. You better believe that Mike's the guy, and you better believe that you're the guy, and you better believe that they're going to spend the money to get players in here, and they're going to be the right players and the right coaches. So I don't think this is listen. It may be a done deal. I don't know that. Nobody knows that right now. I mean, if you do, congratulations. But I'm just saying there's some things to think about for people that think this is a no-brainer that he's coming to Florida State. And I've been told multiple times by multiple people, some know what they're talking about, others don't, that this is what's going to happen. But I think most of those are seeing it through the perspective or the lens of a Florida State football fan and not what he's going to sit down and have to grapple with. Now, again, as I told somebody yesterday, we are assuming that he's got a decision to make, and we do not know that. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to go after that Tulsa job. It is a good G5 job, and it is going to pay handsomely. And if you do well at Tulsa, you got a chance to move up. So anyway, that's where we are with my philosophy on what some of the things that Brendan Marion's got to deal with. Obviously, we'll see what happens with Kevin Johns. And, I keep on here. I've heard Brad White, the Kentucky defensive coordinator's name. Heard it 2 weeks ago for the first time. Then I heard it again yesterday. I don't really have any updated intel on the DCs. Bob, have you heard anything that makes you think that it might be a done deal with anybody at all?
No, I mean, if you're reading the tea leaves on Mike's comments today, is the SMU offensive line coach in play? Is the SMU defensive coordinator in play? I mean, there's a little bit too much here to kind of wrap our heads around, because again, it's not just the Florida State jobs that are coming open.
Yep.
It's jobs all over the country. A lot of Group of 5 jobs are open. Southern Miss is a decent job, not a great Group of 5 job, but that's open. There's going to be presidents, chancellors, ADs. They're going to be talking to the Jimmy Sextons, the search firms. Hey, who's available? What's the number? What kind of NIL do I have to come up with? I would just caution, when we're talking about Group of 5 jobs, Ross Dellinger wrote a really, really good story about Will Hall at Southern Miss and how Will had to spend his offseason driving around, drumming up NIL money. Instead of doing other things on a head coach's checklist, he was spending day after day going to donor after donor. Hey, we need NIL. We need NIL. Group of 5 is just a different world from the NIL structure. I'm sure Tulsa's in a much better shape. They might have some oil money. They might have some big dollars over there. But Group of 5 jobs are going to be attractive. They're going to be opportunities there for you to be a head coach. It's tough to say no to them. I'm with you. We can't just view this as Florida State's a great job. Florida State's got a great opening. It's all of the potential options they're going to be thrown out there for coaching agents to put it in front of their clients.
Well, and if you're Norvell and you're trying to sell him on, hey, of course, I don't know how you do that if you're Mike, because Mike got a chance to go be a G5 head coach and it worked out, but the world's different now. You are an NIL in the portal era. So, some of these G5 jobs, like to your point with Southern Miss, are not as attractive as they used to be. So your selling point, if you're trying to talk him into coming to Florida State as opposed to taking the Tulsa job, well, listen. So Coach Marion, you go in there, you win big your first year, you win 8-4, your roster gets rated by the P4. So there's a lot of ways you can skin this cat because of the NIL and the portal era. But anyway, I just think there's some things that we need to keep in mind. Is this because, as someone has told me about the coaching situation at Florida State, it remains a very fluid process because of all the things that we've talked about. Whether it's we've seen several G5 jobs come open over the course of the last week or so. We're probably going to see staffs get turned over starting on. Well, I'm sure some of the guys that are moving on already know they're moving on, but we'll see more jobs come open. And even Fish has said that there are other big-name schools pursuing Marion, right? So specifically, he has mentioned on our boards Oklahoma. And he is more of, obviously, he went to school in Oklahoma. So how is that going to play out? But anyway, so listen, those two guys may end up at Florida State, but Fish and I, from two different people, two different sources, heard the same versions of the same thing, not totally. And then about 30 minutes after I started digging into it, one of those I was told was not true. And then again today, I was told that it was. So we'll see. And listen, let's be honest. Some of these guys and most of these guys are going to play changes closest to the vest, right? Like they're not going to say anything to anybody until they're ready to walk in. If it's Kevin Johns, to walk into Brett Venables' office and say, hey, coach, I'm leaving. Now, I will say this. Brendan Marion did make a little bit of a strange post on Twitter after their game this weekend where he thanked Barry Odom and the UNLV for the season and the experience. So I don't know. Listen, could be nothing, right? It could be that somebody took a picture, they sent it to him. He was excited. I think are they going to the championship game in the Mountain West? Could have been as simple as that. But anyway, we're all trying to read the tea leaves, and sometimes we're going to read them wrong. But anyway, I think we've pretty much covered just about everything, guys. Anything else we need to talk about?
No, because I don't want to talk about Saturday.
All right. Well, Mark, you have to come back and talk about Saturday. You don't want to interrupt your turkey day on Thursday to do a preview show? No, we're not going to do it on Thursday. We may do it on Wednesday. Because I'll be traveling back to Tallahassee on Friday, trying to get back for the game. Yeah. So I'm up in beautiful Lake Lanier right now. All right, guys. Well, listen, if you're not an Osceola subscriber, please go to theosceola.com and check us out. Kurt Weiler's got what Mike had to say about his ongoing coordinator search. Bob's got a report, freshman report on Seminoles that still have games they can waste as far as not burning a red shirt. And obviously we saw a lot of young kids play this past weekend, particularly on defense. I transcribed Billy Napier's press conference today, and hey, listen, I thought Billy was, we got a little bit more than coach speak, I think, in some regards. And then he had a very interesting comment when asked about how surprised he was about Florida State's disappointing season. And listen, if that had been Steve Spurrier, he probably would have torched Florida State if this was 20 years ago. But he said basically that he's got his own grass to mow. It's a big yard, and he's got his own issues with his own program, and he's got weeds he's got to get out. And he understands a little bit more about the struggles that Mike is going through than the common person that's not involved or has never been involved in in the inner workings of a college football program. But anyway, I thought what Billy had to say was very interesting, and I think he took the high road there. Of course, Kurt's got his article on the Mike moving forward with Luke. I guess he didn't trust me last week, but anyway, he's got his article there talking about is this the watershed moment as far as Luke's career at Florida State, and is essentially are they passing the torch to Luke? If you subscribe to the Osceola, please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com, and I have some portal updates. Again, these kids have not entered the portal, but I understand that they are quarterbacks at the Division I level that could have an interest in Florida State. Florida State could have an interest in them. But there's three names I threw out there. I also threw out there the name of a tight end that I think there's mutual interest in, and we will continue to update that as we start to hear certain things from certain people within the industry. And but we'll be back tomorrow with Fish to talk a little bit more about Byron Lewis, if that indeed happens, and where Florida State might go late in the run outside of the portal for a running back. But we appreciate you listening. If you're not a subscriber to the Osceola YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button now and then sign up for notifications so that you are notified when we do a live or tape show. But we appreciate everyone listening and watching. And we hope that you will go to theosceola.com and subscribe to the Osceola so that you can read everything that we are hearing and seeing around the Florida State football program. And, of course, now we've got basketball is getting ready to get in full swing, and Bob's pulling double duty a lot of nights between basketball and football. We're getting ready to get revved up with National Signing Day on December 4th. And, obviously, as I said, we've got some portal coverage already even before it opens. But, guys, I appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
All right, do it, Mark. All right, here we go. Mark always signs us off. He'll be doing that Saturday night late, too.
Yes, I will.
He'll be happy the season's over no matter what happens. All right, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Kill me now. All right.